Hey guys, back on the Porsche project today, and today we're going to be working on the suspension. I have the engine pretty much wrapped up, but while I had it in the garage and while it was such a pain to get in here on the lift, I decided to actually raise the car. I had lowered it years ago, and we did that the quick and easy way. We just took the torsion bars out and turned them one turn and put them back in. Well, that made it almost too low, and it just didn't ride very well, and the shifter kind of banged around, so I think the axles were putting some stress on the transmission, and I think there's a bump stop inside the shocks, front and rear, and I think it was actually bumping against it. So, I mean, it looked like it was on stilts, so it definitely needed lowered, but I'm going to try to lower it to a more reasonable height, and that starts with taking the torsion bars out and re-indexing them. And while we're in there, I'm going to replace some bushings. I've already done the other side, so I've practiced a little bit, and I'm going to show you this side. And pop you back in the stand, and we'll get this torsion bar and rear suspension pulled apart. So the torsion bar is right in here. The spring plate attaches to the torsion bar, and then the spring plate attaches to the trailing arm, which is right here. So we need, really all we need to do is take the shock bolt out. There's 4 bolts there, and then take those spring plate bolts out. The shock is actually what limits the down travel, but it's almost down as far as it'll go, so it should come right out. Get this going the right way. Alright. Now, the 2 fixed bolts back here, they are also 19s, but I think the way that's set up, it's going to take wrenching to do that. This has all been apart before, obviously, like I told you, so I did put anti-seize on everything, so it comes apart okay. Don't have to worry about breaking anything off. Alright, so those 2 bolts, those are the alignment adjustment. That is the caster and camber adjustment. They're eccentrics back here. One's, well, you'll see in a second, but one's built in the trailing arm and one's in the spring plate. I don't know if you can see that, but that eccentric is on the shoulder, so you'll see it when we get the spring plate off. But that slot is built into the trailing arm, and that's what adjusts the toe or the camber. We'll go through all that. at some point. I don't remember exactly. And then this one, yeah. So there's a slot in the spring plate that this one goes in, and that's what is the other adjustment. All right. So that's all popped out of there. So now the spring plate's all by itself. There's in here. That's how the spring plate's attached. And those are 17s. This compressor is probably going to come on, I'm going to warn you. Spacer on the bottom one, and that's what stops the down travel. This cap will pop off there. And so see how that rubber's all blown out or squeezed out of there? That is, you can actually see it was riding, maybe you can, it was riding down the bottom. It was actually starting to cut in. We get right, yeah, cut in a little bit, get right up against that housing. A new one, make sure I got the right one here. A new one doesn't even have that lip on it, so it's pushed that much out over the years, so that'll get replaced. And then now the torsion bar and spring plate will push out of there. But first of all, let me get some other stuff together, and I'll show you how we're gonna measure the angle. So I have this electronic angle finder here. It displays the angle. Porsche says to use the door rocker panel as a reference. So it's 0.3 degrees upwards. So the front of the car is 0.3 degrees up. And on the spring plate, we're about 26.1. So remember those numbers. So the spring plate should slide out. Now these torsion bars have different spline counts at each end, so one I think is 44 and one's 40. We'll get into that, but you can adjust it within like 50 minutes, any angle, by what combination you turn them. But there's also a bushing inside here we're going to replace. There's the torsion bar. Now what I found is I can't get that thing out of the car. That little cap right there is made to get the torsion bars in and out. But what I found is you can't even get the spring plate off this thing without that little extra bit of clearance. This is like an 8mm nut and a stud on the back of this thing, and I sprayed it with some PV blaster, so let's hope the other side broke off flush with this little cap. So I don't know how I'm going to fix that. I mean, I could weld it, but I'm going to blow the paint up, so I'll figure something out. This one I hosed down and it looks a lot better than the other side. That may be enough. what holds that in, little T deal. You can't see it as well on this side, but on the other side's the original color under there. This car was green originally, and may go back that way someday, but yeah, it's a lot better looking on the other side. But anyway, I digress. So now we can actually wiggle the spring plate off here, and just the spring plate should come off, leaving the torsion bar in the car. Yeah, it doesn't want to. There's the torsion bar. Come on. Let me get it back and see if I can put some pressure on the inside to help keep the torsion bar from coming out. And there's the spring plate, and I'm going to take this to work and blast it and paint it before we go back together. And there's the other bushing. I'm going to replace that too. So while we're in here, I'm also going to do some little cleanup. That was rust repair from the 90s. This was originally a Pennsylvania car, so it had some holes, and I was in college at the time, and I fixed it at my uncle's shop. Well, I cut the pieces and he welded them. I know a little better now, so I'm going to try to clean all that up, make that look at least somewhat presentable. And there's still a little bit of rust on the back here. I saw a couple pinholes. I'm probably going to weld that up. Well, I got all this apart, and need to do something with that. So it might be a while till we get this thing back together. It might show a little rust repair in the meantime, but anyway, thanks for watching, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. I took these to work and blasted them. They came out pretty decent, scraped off undercoating, etc. So now I'll hit them with some self-etching primer and paint them black. I pulled the torsion bar out, shoved a rag in there. We're going to try to clean up some of that frame repair. It's welded in there pretty well, but it just doesn't look the greatest. So while we're here, we're going to try to make it look better. Angle grinder with a pretty much shot flap disc. I think I have some more. Well, we'll start with this. So, of course, you can't see any of that, can you? That was not my welding, by the way. So, we'll continue on here. Okay, so I used a combination of various tools: angle grinder, cut-off disc, air angle grinder with a grit pad. Cleaned all that off. Now we're going to take some seam sealer and just fill in all these seams in case there's any little rust pinholes, etc. So we will get that shot in there. And I've really only concentrated on this part. Needs to do some work down here. but I'm going to wait till I get it off the lift and jack the car up. So let me get this smeared in here, and then we'll see what it looks like afterwards. So that's applied on anywhere there was a seam and pushed in to hopefully fill all the pinholes, and we will let that cure, and then we'll come back and prime and paint it. I've never seen a dog tread water before.
Yeah.
Where's your toy?
I don't know.
What are you doing?